coach does not last 10 years or more in the NFL. You can only name two exceptions off the top of my head right now, and that's Tom Coughlin and Bill Belichick. Both of those got 2 Super Bowls or more. Those are the only names I can think of right now who have lasted with one team from that amount of time, and I'd have to really think to try to find another. And there's a reason that trend continues. You know what I mean?
I do. And another guy that, that's been, seems like he's stuck around forever has been Jeff Fisher. And for the life of me, I can't figure out how in the hell that guy keeps a job. But I do agree to a certain extent that maybe Sean Payton's voice has gone stale. But I don't think it's a situation that any fan, any member of the media, or anyone should suggest, because I know a lot of people give Sean and Mickey flack. It's time to clean house, it's time to pressure wash.
Mm-hmm.
The reality of the situation is this. We can all say it. We can hold hands and pray that it happens. Sean isn't going anywhere, and neither is Mickey.
Yeah.
And I think that's the one thing fans, most fans, and I know you totally understand it, but I'm saying it for those who on a daily basis find a gripe about the Saints and tweet until their little fingers explode about how Sean Payton needs to go and Mickey Loomis needs to go, and Mickey Loomis is the reason why the Pelicans are awful too. No, he's not. And I'm really at this point sick of addressing the same situation, because it's almost like it's not that it's falling on deaf ears. It's that you hear it clearly and you just won't accept what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Sean Payton just signed a 5-year extension, making him the highest paid coach in the NFL. Tom Benson is not going to pay him to go away. Not happening. Mickey Loomis,
you're right,
on record from Tom Benson's mouth himself as saying it's one of the smartest decisions he's ever made hiring Mickey Loomis, and that he fully and completely trusts him with his life. By the way, Mickey Loomis' best friend is a man named Dennis Lauscher, who doesn't get very much press, but he's the president of Saints operations, and that is Tom Benson's true right-hand man. I believe Tom looks at it more like a son than he does a business partner or a business associate. Dennis Lauscher loves Mickey Loomis, who loves Sean Payton. They are a unit. When everything was going on with the Rita and and company, the grandkids trying to sue for custody of the team, there were 3 people who absolutely knew they were safe as long as Tom Benson owned the team: Dennis Lauscher, Mickey Loomis, Sean Payton. That is why they went so hard to bat for him, because they knew Rita didn't give a damn about them and would put them out. Tom Benson's going to keep them where they are. So maybe a lot of you, what you should have prayed for was Rita getting the team, although they might be the Los Angeles Saints instead. Please stop with the entire thing about Sean going anywhere, because he's not. That's not for you, Rev. That's for all of those who can't comprehend.
I know. Well, I think the main thing, and me and you have talked about this extensively. We've had guests on the show talk about it. I think the last time we talked about it was probably 4 weeks ago on the show. It's not that Peyton can't. It's that Peyton has lost the checks and balance system, because there's no longer anybody to tell him no. And when you get that type of power, you start trying to run things your way, even if sometimes it's not the right way, because you have nobody that says it's better to do this instead of this. Bill Belichick is one of the, everybody likes to say, Peyton and Belichick are similar when they're not. Belichick is the next level, arguably greatest coach of all time. If not, you can throw him up there with 2 other names in NFL history, and that's probably it. Maybe 3 other names. And very few people have the record of success that he has and the control over one team, taking them everywhere they got to go. And Peyton's just not that guy. We try to make Peyton into that guy, but he's not. And what he really needs, and he's shown this historically, and Greg Williams did this to him, and I'm going to use this as an example, but he needs, a defensive coordinator who not only knows what he's doing, but has the cojones, the guts to tell Sean, no, we're not doing this play. Because how many times have we watched Sean demand his defensive coordinator run a blitz when it's very obvious that pass is about to go over the top of your head because you got nobody to defend it? And 2, and Mickey Loomis seemed to used to do this, but he doesn't anymore, somebody to tell Sean, no, you don't need to sign this guy, or no, we don't need to draft this guy. And Jeff Ireland seems to have come in and helped with the draft situation. Things have improved the past 2 years. There's definitely steps forward in the right direction. We still have to work on the free agent signings, and we still have got to get someone who's willing to tell Sean, stay away from the defense. Dennis Allen, I think Dennis Allen has done much better than I thought he would this year. he still hasn't maximized his talent. Yeah, I know there's a ton of injuries, but when you have a lot of the talent pieces that we have, there shouldn't be so much inconsistency. And I know you've mentioned it multiple times. It's the fact that why is this team so successful in making adjustments after the first half, but during the first half they might score 20 or 30 points, and there seems to be nothing the team can do, and then they come out in the third quarter and they look like the 85 Bears. That is something that Dennis Allen has to rein in and do better at. And I think a lot of that comes down to maybe this is pure speculation, but maybe he's not able to have, full control like he should of what the team should be running. And then at halftime he says, look, Sean, this isn't working. Let's try this.
That could be a possibility, but I think the reason why Dennis Allen was brought in is because Sean Payton does trust him. So if there's anybody Sean's going to give control to the defense to, I think it's Dennis Allen. I think Sean every now and again may nudge him a little bit because they do have that type of relationship and be like, hey, why don't we try putting a little pressure on him right here? And of course, Dennis Allen, the acquiescence, give in to him, every now and again. But I think Dennis Allen has full control over the defense. If that would be my guess, if you're not going to give him control, why the heck do you have him here? Because you got rid of Rob Ryan to, basically undercut Rob while he was still the defensive coordinator. You brought in Dennis Allen. So I think in that situation, Dennis Allen does have control. What I believe happens when it comes to, the defense, it's simply a matter of, it's not the defense that I'm worried about, even in the first half. It's the offense. And I know it's crazy for me to say that, considering that, you can lay out the numbers and sit down and say, well, the defense has given up almost 21, 22 points in the first half. But in the second half of games, they're giving up roughly around 9. So you can definitely want to point to the defense. But here's what I always like to remind folks. 2009, the Saints did not have a great defense.
That's right.
In fact, statistically, this season, the Saints may have a better overall defense than the 2009 team. The difference between the 2009 or 2011, whichever team you want to use, and this Saints team is simply one thing. The offense was better. And the Saints defense is not built to create a lead. It's built to maintain a lead, meaning that the Saints offense needs to jump out fast, get up to a 17-7, 20-7 type of score. And then the Saints defense can pin their ears back and go after the quarterback. That is the way they've always been constructed. That is the reason why Sean Payton went out and found a guy like Greg Williams. That is the reason why Dennis Allen is a defensive coordinator now, because Sean Payton wanted everything that was Greg Williams except Greg Williams. So that is why the Saints defense will always suffer. When the offense can hit 49 points like they did against the Rams, the Saints defense turns into a different animal. When they have to struggle and play a close game, the Saints defense is in trouble because the offense needs to put up points in order for the defense to be at its peak. That's the things I say about the Saints.
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly a consistency issue. Just to throw out the numbers for those wanting to know, this year the Saints are ranked 26, in yards allowed. In the 2009 Super Bowl season, we were ranked 25th. So in terms of how many yards we gave up, it's actually pretty close. The only big difference, and I do believe it needs to be pointed out, is we were ranked 3rd in turnovers that season. We took the ball away a lot. We were very opportunistic. Now, we do have a caller who wants to voice their opinion, so we need to give them a shot. Brian and I just have to shut up for a couple minutes. Miss Judy is on the line.
That is exact. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am. Okay,
ma'am. You don't have to say ma'am. But I was going to say that, to me, that's the difference between, I agree, like 100%. The difference between the 09 defense, to me, and this defense is not so much yardage and you know how you can look at those statistics. It was the opportunistic defense that we had. We caused turnovers. We got turnovers. We weren't really that great of a defense. Mm-hmm. But the offense, I mean, if you get the ball, I mean, you have another shot, and the offense could take that ball and go down the field and score. I just think you get off to a slow start time and time and time. Everybody says defense, defense, defense. I just don't see a lot of production from the offense. Mm-hmm. You can't score 3 points in the first half and blame it on your defense.
I have a question for you, Miss Judy.
Okay.
When was the last time you watched a Saints game and were absolutely confident they would even get one turnover not multiple, but just one turnover.
Years.
Exactly. And that's exactly how I feel
I would say back in '09, when I expected them to turn the ball over. I expected them to get a takeaway.
I believe the same thing would happen for me. I believe it was '09, maybe '11 would, 2011 would probably be the last year I expected him to do so. And it's sad because that was 5 years ago. And on top of it being 5 years ago, I'm almost at this point now where I'm more surprised when they get a turnover.
Yeah.
than,
Exactly.
Expecting it.
Yeah.
And then,
Which is sad, really, because any NFL team should be able to pull in at least 1 or 2 turnovers a game. And for the Saints, it's a rare treat, and it's sad that it's like that, but that's how it is, And just to add on to something that y'all talking about, for me, the offense is not less powerful than, say, the 2009 offense. They're just not as consistent, because the 2009 offense, while they were the best in terms of yardage NFL offense, which is, for some reason, that's how, when they say this is the best offense, they do it by yardage. But to me, what's more important is scoring. And the Saints were the number 1 scoring offense in 2009. And in the past 3 years, we've been 10th, 9th, and 8th. So the yardage has still been there, but we cannot seem to score consistently like we were doing before.
That's what I was just going to ask. Well, what were we ranked scoring-wise in '09? And you answered it before I could ask, but that's the difference to me. You can get all the yards you want. You just can't. We just can't score. Yesterday or Sunday was not the first time that we scored 3 points in the first half. There was another game that we only scored 3 points in the first half. You can't expect to win.
Yeah, you're right. Totally right.
And I just have always, and I've listened to defense for. It is better this year, a lot better, and I haven't heard as much complaints. But in the past, it's all the defense policies. Wide receivers are going to catch 20 and 30-yard passes in every game in the NFL, on every team. That's not you can't watch a game where the quarterback of any team doesn't throw a 30-yard pass to a receiver and he catches it. That doesn't mean that the corner is horrible. That just means the wide receiver and the quarterback are on the same page and they're good at what they do. That's what they do.
Yeah.
They're going to catch a ball.
Here's my thing with that, and I'm not disagreeing with you. I just want to add something on top of that. Yes, that's true. In today's NFL, passing offenses are just so much more efficient than they used to be. But, for example, Matthew Stafford, if I remember right, because I was tracking this during the game, through the first 3 quarters, was throwing almost 90% completion. And he didn't have his second incompletion until well into the second quarter, if I remember right.
Didn't he throw like 13 or 14 in a row completions?
Yes, ma'am, he did. And the only incompletion he had at the very beginning was that dropped pick 6 that Sterling Moore would have had on that very first drive. And then he went on a string of like 3 or 4 drives where he didn't have a single incompletion. And that's the problem. Yeah. It's a consistency thing, because they came back in the second half and Stafford's numbers came back down to earth. But when you let a team really walk over you offensively for an entire half of football, it not only puts your defense in a tough spot, it puts your offense in a tough spot, because it seems that this team, since Sean's return, since Breeze, is getting weathered, so to speak. I still think he's phenomenal, but I will say he's not as good as he was in 2009, just because time waits for no man.
Right.
But if you can't be consistent and you have to continually play from behind, even if that's only a 2-possession behind, that really changes the dynamic of your game. The reason the Saints had so many opportunities to be defensively aggressive in 2009 is because they were constantly playing with a lead. So the defense was able to give up however many yards. They didn't care. They were just trying to force turnovers to give the offense the ball more. But when you're playing down 10 points, 15 points, 20 points, you simply can't do that, because you're just asking for the dagger to get dug in deeper.
Right. You can't be as risky and play that ball. You better play your man. I mean, you've got to stop him because you're already behind. But you can take more of a chance if you've got a 2-touchdown lead and go for that interception. And maybe
yes, ma'am.
Yeah, maybe that's the difference. I hadn't thought about it like that. But maybe that's why we got more turnovers, because we were Roman Harper used to be great at that. But he would risk it now. I mean, he's not taking many snaps now, but we're not worried about as much about jumping that route and getting that ball. We better tackle the man.